Hello, fellow Mythrunians. Welcome to another weekly live stream. After taking a week off last week to see a show that moved me emotionally and was really good, in fact. Um, so you'll notice down at the bottom of the screen is the link to the last build, which was from January. Hopefully we'll have another build soon, and the password, the super secret password, for you to get access to it if you have not already. That's also where you can that's also where you can find the link to the Discord. Good group of people on the Discord if you want to join. Before we get too much further, let me thank the patrons. You guys help make the engine keep running here, so thanks a lot. There are free members too, and I appreciate that they're on too, that they're following along. I think that's cool. Anyway, before we get too late in the night, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the link is also in the upper left here in case you want to grab it while we're doing it. I think today we will start off kind of, I think, catching up to where we were last week, just to catch up. Looks like we have one person online. Let me go ahead and minimize that. All right, so last week we were playing with the block warping, and I got that working pretty good. Let me see. I'm not quite ready to integrate it into the game yet, but that's only because this model view state thing needs to be refactored first. Let me go ahead and show where I ended up. Let me see what I left. Oh, yeah, so there it is. That's a normal sized thick tree trunk. That's about how it would appear. Why are my... oh, it's the tab key that lets me move around. I forget how this tool works. So that's kind of how it'll look. As blocks are chopped away. Once again, this is warped from a cubic block, and there's some minor texture anomalies that have to do with the way the triangles are laid out. Whether the edge runs this way or edge runs this way. The textures map a little weird. Those are entirely fixable problems. And regular Mythruna somewhat suffers from that too, just in the lighting and stuff. So I'm not worried about that. I think it's still a cool effect, and this will be nice if we can chop trees and they look like that. At some point, I'll also go back and add a 2x2 version of this for thin trees when there are more of those. Anyway, so that's where we left off there. I got this all working, and it's working good. I just need to integrate it. Working well. I need to integrate it into the shaders. I've been making a ton of little improvements as I work on this giant task, which even my estimates, the refactor of the model view state. So the model view state is what makes all of the models show up in the world. It tracks where their position is, what their shape is. Some add-on stuff tracks, whether the treasure chests are open and closed, whether the doors are open and closed. The animation state tracks, what pose the characters are in, all that stuff. So it affects everything, but it was limitations in that and how it deals with background threading and a bunch of other things that got more and more complicated. And so I'm kind of rebuilding it from the ground up with all of my lessons learned. And so that's kind of what we're going to continue on today. And I'll show you where we are. With that, I think I still have the debug view on. That would have probably been a good thing to check. Well, anyway, regardless, I just wanted to talk about it a little anyway. Yep, it's all on. So, it's just unfortunate there's no quick way to test this. And it's, of course, extra slow with the live stream. Okay, so these are all still being rendered the old way, and these big crosshair things are rendered with the new state. So, like, I think I talked about this last time. They were being scaled, but you can see every object, and it's being lit kind of the way it's supposed to be lit. So every object that is being managed by the model view state will have one of these. Those are all the butterflies flying around. Even this big ship has one underneath. And so that's showing me that that state is working. Currently I don't have it mapped to any of these kind of models, and so that's why it's only showing those big giant crosshairs. So as I convert things over, these crosshairs will go away. In fact, the next step is going to be hooking up the actual model factory to this new state and then turning off the old one. And what we'll end up seeing are, I believe, all the objects will look correct, but the animated objects won't open and close, and the characters won't animate and they won't have close, and so then those will be what we work on next. But one other thing I did was, in the process of this, as I find things that I didn't ever finish or hook up correctly in the old code, I've been fixing it in the old code, when it was something simple. And so I went back and I added lights to this model. Somehow I accidentally removed the roof piece from there. I gotta go fix that. So ignore, there's this shadow here, which is actually an artifact of how this casts a shadow on that, so ignore that for a second. If we get in here, it won't be as apparent. But these lights now light up their part of the model, and if we go back into the dark, you can see that used to not happen. Even in old Mythruna, the objects never self-lit, but now they do. You can see this boat is lit by its own lighting kind of thing, which is kind of cool. It's especially neat. I'm going to bring the lights back up so we can see for a second. It's especially important for things like the campfires, which I don't have any campfire models here, but there is this, you can't hardly see it. I'm going to bring it up and drag it over into the dark here. Whoops. This is a lantern. If I move too quick, it won't move. So, okay. So this is a lantern, and you can see how it's lit up its little cone inside there. And normally, it would only have been lit by sunlight, and now, even in the dark, the interior of that lantern is lit. Now, eventually, these lanterns will cast their own light, but they don't yet. But if we dragged this over to the fire, you can see that the whole lantern itself lights up. So it's still affected by, you can kind of see it light up a little bit, right? Yeah, you can see that that's not as solid black as it was. The iron material doesn't reflect a lot of light, so it absorbs most of it. But you can see how the handle's lit up. And if we drag it over here, the handle's not as lit up. It's only lit by the internal light, which is relatively weak. Anyway, so this will be kind of cool. And so I've been fixing those kinds of things, refactoring as I go. But now I'm to the point where I need to start implementing the new one. And so step one of that is going to be just putting the default model support in, without all the fancy bells and whistles. And I've already set it up to turn off this old one. If we go in here, and so that's the legacy model view state, and I can leave that enabled, but I can turn on its debug view, which will turn off all the models, and they'll end up as crosshairs. So if we run the game again, we won't see any models, and you'll see all the stuff that was managed by that particular app state. And app state is a JMonkey engine specific thing for extending the application. In this case, I use the app state to manage all of the models, their position and their look, their shape, based on the entities on the quote-unquote back end. But anyway, we'll get to the meat of it in a second. And I think I can do it in stages so that we kind of see what's happening, but we'll see. funny, I hardly ever hear the music because this computer doesn't have speakers plugged into it at the moment, and so when I'm wearing the headphones to do the live stream is the only time I hear the sound effects for the game. It's kind of cool. Alright. So we should still be daytime. Oh, it's getting to be sunset, so let's back the time up a little bit. Yep, so see no models right now except for their little things, and you'll see, yeah, there's Vonama walking around, but you can't see her. But that's, she's standing right here. I don't know why she's not walking. Oh, there she is walking. She was just standing still for a while. And these butterflies flying around. We can't see the butterflies. So that'll be, as we enable that stuff, there's a, that's a, see, I already see a bug. There is some model that is hung in the, yeah, so there's something stuck there. And as I move, it moves farther away, which means it's not really being managed. And I bet if I move again across this boundary, you can see that little cross right there, right? So, yep, and it moved farther away. So that's a bug. And it's in the new model view state, and I have found some bugs and I have not been able to track them down. It's got the same code to manage the objects as the new one. So I don't know why sometimes the butterflies don't appear, and sometimes, this is like the first time I've seen that actually. So to keep an eye on that. Again, once I have this in place, I can worry about those kinds of things. The new version, like the old one, managed everything together. Like it's this big spaghetti mess of, it managed the parent-child relationships, it managed the locations, it managed the models, it managed running everything on a background thread, it updating the lighting, all this stuff in here. And if you ever had to extend it for some reason, you ended up having to add hooks and do weird things. The new version is very focused on only managing sort of the position of the objects and their lighting, because the lighting is based on the position. And so it's very, very focused, and then it calls out to a model object to do everything else, and it's up to that model object to do things on the background thread. If it wants to load its model on the background thread, that it can do that. If it doesn't want to, it doesn't have to, that kind of thing. So it's much more focused. So that means it's also easier to debug in a sense, because it's much less code, much more straightforward. So because this class is essentially done, other than the bug that we just saw and some other bugs that are probably in here because it's brand new code. But what we want to do is somewhere in here it sets the default factory, and we want to change this to not be that thing that creates those debug access stuff. We want to make it the new the default model factory that I started creating, and you can see it's stubbed out, but we want to make it that, and it's going to need some stuff, but I don't know what yet. So as we build it out, oh, actually it says what it needs. It needs the shape factory and the spatial factory. Yeah. Okay. Shape factory, I believe we can get, because that's going to use the same shape. I'm trying to figure out what I did already, because I started hooking this up last week before the previous live stream, in fact, 2 weeks ago. So I'm trying to remember type-based model factory. Yeah, there it is. No, that's the one we're about to fill in. That's, yeah, okay. So if we look over at the legacy, we're going to use the same shape factory it does. And the shape factory is what takes a entity's shape info or shape name and turns that into, you know, the physical shape that has the blocks or the spheres or the character rig or whatever. You know, how the physics sees the yeah, so we're going to use the same one, and we'll steal that code here somewhere. Get state, get shape factory, and then we will want to have this. I think that I don't have the imports that I need to do that. Oh, well, yeah, it's going to complain. Let's put this back for a second. I had an extra parenthesis anyway. Okay, so it doesn't know what a shape factory is. So I can steal that from the... come on, brain. Spatial utils, I grabbed some of these. Oh. Alright, we'll go get it from the source. Somewhere up here. This is where the, an IDE would be helpful for when my memory gives out. Shape factory is part of this, I believe. Except for I think we've already got that one. Nope. Okay, so see if I just done a star, we'd have been fine. Alright. So we have a shape factory and we need a spatial factory, and I'm gonna keep it here, even though I think I'm just gonna pass it in. So spatial is JMonkey Engine's visual representation, you know, something that gets rendered. And so I've created a stub here so far that doesn't take anything, so we're just gonna, it's going to definitely need 100%, it's going to need some stuff, but we don't know what yet. So then I can take this and I can say shape factory, spatial factory. And so the default model factory that doesn't really need to do anything is then super straightforward, because it's just going to, okay, well, it's not 100% super straightforward because it should be doing its work on a background thread. But we're going to do it inline for the moment because, you know, again, this guy doesn't know about threads anymore. It doesn't care. Doesn't do anything on the background except for update lighting, because that can, querying the world for lighting can take a long time, as we've seen if you ever have tried flying with super nuclear fast speed with the control shift. Sometimes the engine will hang, and that's because it's doing things like querying the lighting from the world in a section that it hasn't loaded yet. You know, even though you're in the middle of the sky, it's got to like ask the world what the lighting is there. There's more to it than that, because there's also some other things it queries about your local position. Anyway, so default model factory, we're going to need at least a minimal spatial factory, and so for now I think what I am going to do is just return, I started making these, I'm going to return a box. I started making these spatial utils for things I commonly do, so we'll make a debug box. Yeah, create debug box. So we'll just get that. Let's just make it 1, size 1, and red. So every object will just be a big red, giant red box for the moment. Until we, so I want to make sure everything is hooked up, and then tonight, for sure, the first thing we'll be doing is focusing on implementing this properly, but I want to make sure it's all hooked up. So what happens is we're going to need to call that from here. And so, yeah, so really we would create a model and we would load it in the background. I don't think I created so I haven't created a model implementation yet for spatials. So we'll real quickly create one of those. It's going to look a lot like this for the time being. Cut and paste coding, kids. It's the greatest. Spatial model. And what we'll do, spatial view root, color, local lighting, and we'll pass the spatial in for now. So don't need these things. I do actually need to say local lighting. Local lighting. Yeah, so don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Oh, we do. Want that. Is that all we want? And then for this, we want to say, oh wait. For this, we want to say local lighting set RGBS. So in Mythruna, for all block objects, there's 4 colors that control the lighting. So you've got red, green, and blue, which control like whatever the local lights are lighting up. So if you're standing next to a green light, obviously the green's going to be high and the other ones are going to be low. But then there's, I use the alpha channel to say how much sunlight is there. So if you're in the middle of a cave, you know, S is 0. If you're outside under the sun, S is high, it'll go 15 in this case. So we pass for 1 anyway. Center offset 0, yes, that's good. So this should give us a minimally functional model. But we'll go ahead and block shape. Shape equals shape factory. What is the shape factory method signature? I believe I kept it open. There it is. So it takes the name, the scale, and the mass. And so here already we've discovered something that I'm not passing to my model factory that I need to pass to my model factory. Because I think that the model view state already knows the mass. So where is it calling create model? Oh wait, did I decide I don't need the mass? I think when I was building this out, I carefully decided what should and shouldn't be passed to that method. but some objects don't have mass. So I think I can pass a null. And the scale, the scale would have come from the shape. I think I do need to pass that in. Well, okay, so the issue here is that when we create the model, we don't necessarily know that. Model view state's set up so that anything that asks for a model can get one for a particular entity, even if that entity doesn't have all its parts yet. This is for being able to load things for stand-ins that are being created and various reasons for putting things in inventory and so on. And so until we get a shape info, but that's not we don't create the model until we get a shape info. So hold on, I may be incorrect. Update shape info. Load shape. Shape name. Will I always have a shape info here? Yes. Let me make sure this is the only place I'm calling create model. I think it is. Yep. Okay, so until we have a shape info, we don't even call load shape, so we don't call create model. So create model can take. In fact, I'm going to change this to take the shape info as well, in case I ever add any other information there. We know we have one. Yeah, right there. Because the only way we would have called that code is if we loaded it. So then I need to change my model factory interface to take a shape info. And then fix everybody who doesn't already have it. And, oh, that's not right. Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna have to go fix the imports as well. So debug access factory. We'll get one. It doesn't care about it, although it could have used that to scale itself. Something to consider. Debug model factory. Okay, so now we've got that, but we're going to have to go back here and pepper this around. And here, I-E-F-G-H-I-J. There we go. I know my alphabet. Yeah. Yep, okay. So then back here, back to here. Now we can give it a scale. Create shape. Get full name. And then shape info, scale, null. Okay, so we'll create a shape with no mass. Because really, as it turned out, so this is an interface that I created in the Moss stuff, this shape factory. So I don't want to change the create shape, because there is other code that uses it. It's a big pain to change it, and potentially there are a couple of users of those pieces of code that might be affected by that if I did it. So I don't change it lightly. The reason that the code is only available early access to patrons, one of the big reasons is because I don't want to have to directly support it yet. So I'm not afraid of changing the API and breaking other people, because it's still early access, but I'm not going to just do it on a whim either. Plus, it could turn out I've made a mistake and I realized my error later. And I'm wondering, I bet I 100% want to pass the shape info here too. We've got the chance to do this right. So shape info. Okay, so we're going to ignore it for now, but I could have used that. In fact, let's do that. So now we'll at least use the scale of the shape just to make our red box, so they won't all be the same size. Some of them will be teeny tiny, in fact. Okay, so Spatial Factory did that. Yeah, Spatial Factory is not an interface, so we're good there. So we created the spatial. Hey, good evening, Oakstorm. How are you? Looks like we've got like 6 people on. That's nice. You can watch me ramble and do the tedious code that I've been chipping away at like 1 hour a night. Alright, so for now we will return spatial model, entity ID, spatial. Okay, so I believe if everything compiles and I've hooked it up correctly, that we will have red boxes that don't light themselves properly. Because I'm pretty sure that yeah, this is just going to create a regular material. Oh, it's not even going to create a lit material. Let's change that. So it'll at least be lit. Oh, wireframe? That's why I'm not lighting it. Maybe we don't want to create a... Let's create a debug sphere instead. Because otherwise it'd just be wireframe. So we want same name. We'll use the scale as the radius. Yeah, all that's okay. And we won't give it a texture. So comma null. So I missed everyone last week. Of course, I was having a good time watching a pretty good show. It's my second time watching that particular musical. The local high school did Big Fish, which, if you don't know it, it can be very emotional. I saw it 4 times. So that should be good. That should be good. I think we're okay. Yes, it won't be lit properly, but let me make sure we can compile without having to fix imports. Ooh. Did it again. Oh yeah, I never fixed that extra. Okay. Let's try it again. Big Fish. It's about a guy and his son. Like when he's a traveling salesman, and he used to come home and tell his son all these fantastic stories about the things he did in his life, meeting a mermaid, you know, meeting a giant, all these different things. And as his son got older, he realized that his dad was probably making up all that stuff. And so it's kind of set when they're adults, and it goes back in time to when the kid was a kid and stuff. The kid's trying to reconcile, with his dad and so on and so forth. And so there's some emotional period. Because the kid has his own son, wants to reconcile with his dad, but his dad's got cancer. But the music is good. So default model factory, spatial factory. Oh, that's the other. Everybody needs these. Everybody needs this now. That's the unfortunate thing. Spatial factory. This guy's already got it. So who else was complaining? Default model factory. It's complaining about something else, isn't it? Spatial. Yeah. All these crap. Oh, yeah. All the JMonkey engine stuff I didn't include. com.jma3 scene.star math.star standard stuff you gotta pull in. Okay, somebody else is still wrong. Oh, gotta pull in my math stuff as well. Okay, let's see. Can we get farther? Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad to be wasting your time tonight instead, so that's cool. Unreal Engine. You can make some real pretty stuff fast in that engine, I understand. We need to copy this. And this. Oh, nice. Yeah, I really hope to get a release out soon. I'd like to have like all of this buttoned up, especially the chopping stuff, because I'd like you guys to get to try it out. Default model factory. That's me. Why am I? Oh, the light utils. Sure. Sure. Aw, man. That's too bad. Okay, wait. Spatial utils. Did I put it? Oh. Did I put it in the wrong? I did. Ha 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 ha. I cut and pasted the package from something else. Does that mean spatial factories? No, spatial factories, right. Oh boy, guys, I'm sorry about this. Okay, so unchecked, we can ignore. Method create model in class. Type-based model factory needs to be fixed too. I forgot there's another model factory. So there's another implementer of the another guy that needs this. It's the one that calls different model factories based on their type. So it's going to need to pass that along. In the needs if I had in the plugin, that is, if I was smart like you, I'd just figured out. I don't know about that. You know, sometimes those engines, there's a sort of border where you can't cross. You know, where it suddenly gets very hard. Right, you can customize, then you hit a wall where the go to the next step to customize it a little bit more requires that you rewrite a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't know about Unreal Engine, but I know in Unity that's true. Like you can continue to use their systems up to a point, but then at some point you have to start replacing their parts, their pre-builts, with your own stuff from the ground up. And that's not as much fun sometimes. Okay. But I speak only having shoulder surfed people using it. I've never used it myself. So type-based model factory, of course. We did not include the... So, you know, I will admit that it is tempting on these live streams to sometimes use an IDE because of the... yeah, just a little C++. There's no such thing as a little C++. All right, we can run. I mean, on some level, I would say there's no such thing as a little Java either. You can have a little Groovy, but probably not a little Java, and definitely not a little C++. So. Come on. Has anybody watched the Fallout series on Amazon Prime? I think I might have talked about this before. I really enjoyed that series. Watched it with my older child, who has, who's an adult, right? But she's played all the games, and I like the prompt. um, anyway, she played all the games, so like knows much more of the lore, and so yeah, like we got our spheres, red spheres, so we're doing something. Yeah, there's Vonama, how you pronounce her name, walking around. Um, anyway, so occasionally we would pause it because I would see something in the background, or she would um, interject some lore, and oh, maybe that's a so and so, and I gotta wait, pause it, so I could get some background lore because she's played all the games, New Vegas, um, and even has dabbled in Fallout 2 and Fallout 1 and stuff. But the Wasteland Golden Rule I think about a lot this past few days because especially at work, I've gone in to do something simple and got sidetracked by unnecessary bullshit, right? Thou shalt get sidetracked by unnecessary bullshit at every GD time, right? I'm really bummed that it will be a few years till the next FO4 in VR is really interesting. Yeah, I started to play Fallout 4, so here's the story of my Fallout 4. I told myself back when Mythruna was like I was trying to integrate its physics engine to the networking, right? The original Mythruna. And so I told myself I wasn't going to play Fallout 4 until I got that working. I got Fallout 4 for my birthday one year. Said child who really is into the games got it for me. And so I sat there with it, and it was like a year later, and so I finally let her play it. And still I sat with it and sat with it and sat with it. And finally I broke down because, I mean, I had already started rewriting the engine at that point, and so I went ahead and played a little bit of Fallout 4. But by then I'm in a good place with Mythruna in the sense that I look forward to working on it most days. And so it's kind of like, to me, it satisfies a lot of the same itch as playing those role-playing games. Though the temptation is always there. I just know I get sunk into it, and I do all the side quests. I never advance the main story, so it takes forever. But yeah, so this is working. I'm happy. Yeah, I don't know. See, here's my so I played Oblivion. So my experience with Bethesda games is I do all the side crap, right? I go and live in the world. So I played Oblivion. You get out of the prison, and Lord Septim, or whatever his name is, tells you go to this abbey and meet with this friar or something like that. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I went and wandered around the world, made my fortune or whatever, and worked really hard to get a horse and all these other things. And so finally I stopped by that stupid abbey, and the first thing they do is give you a horse. And I'm like, son of a bitch. It took me forever to earn the gold to buy a stupid horse. Anyway, and Skyrim was similar in that, as soon as you get through Whiterun and you become figure out that you can help defeat dragons or whatever, and they tell you go to the mountains and talk to the old ones or whatever. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I've wandered all over that stupid world. I've never gone and done that. So my Dragonborn is limited in that sense because there's like certain things I can't unlock. But meanwhile, I've done like every side quest in so many of the towns and got a mansion out in the woods and some kids. So fun games. I just prefer to go in and live in them. So Fallout 4 was similar. I just was wandering around doing stuff. I try not to advance the story if I can avoid it. Because in Oblivion, you advance the story until the Oblivion gates pop open, and then your whole world changes, is my understanding. So they avoided that. Anyway, okay, so we're to the point where I can actually start replacing the red spheres with something real. So, how do we want to go about that? But it's exciting. We're 45 minutes in, and things are actually working. Things are working the way I stated that they would. Big giant red spheres. So most of my gaming lately has been little games that I can play while waiting for everyone to gather for dinner. You know, something I can pull up on the regular PlayStation 4 I have upstairs. So I played through Minecraft Dungeon until it wanted me to like buy stuff. But I got like a ridiculous level, and so like the dungeons are quite interesting when they're throwing like 30 and 40 skeletons at you and zombies and stuff. That was a lot of fun. I felt really powerful by the end. And then I played that like free games that PlayStation puts on. Speaking of which, there's new free games this month, and I haven't grabbed them yet. So there's like that Nobody Saves the World, which I played for a while. Which was an interesting game. I definitely learned some interesting ideas from that. I can't even really explain it, but there were some interesting concepts in there about taking an interesting idea and then like flipping it a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to explain unless you've played the game. But I would call it like a Zelda-like game, right? It's like the original Zelda, but I guess modern people would equate it to something else. But it's top-down. You're a character. You go around. Every time you enter a new screen, the monsters are back. I guess that Binding of Isaac was set up similarly. But anyway, you wander around the world and go into dungeons and stuff and fight bad guys. But you can transform into different things, which is kind of cool. And each of those different things levels up separately, and they have their own quests, you know, special character quests. Excuse me, that gives them more powers for their characters. So you can eventually you can be a dragon, apparently. But there's all kinds of weird character classes that you can switch to. Anyway, so we want to copy code from. Kind of. We're not going to copy it exactly, but this was the legacy spatial factory, and so it comes in here and it says we're going to ignore a lot of this stuff for now. But we need a geometry factory for sure. And unfortunately, I think for now we also need this carve includes. I'm almost tempted to leave it out. Just past true. So carving, I think we talked about that previously. That's what lets the, when the model is smaller, it will scale the texture up like it's big. So if you made a 4x4 block of stone, you could set carved and it would look like a regular 1 meter stone. And this carve includes, it says whether or not that particular geometry should be carved or not. And that's because some materials look really bad if you do that to them, like the leaf blocks look really bad, the fire blocks would look really dumb. Some of the blocks look really stupid if you set them carved. I think even glass is probably in there. But that's actually a problem with how I've defined materials. Really, the materials should say whether they're carvable or not. Or the fact that you can carve should be something you set on the material and they either support it or they don't. So I'm almost tempted to ignore this for the moment. But we absolutely do need this. This is how you turn a... that's how you turn blocks into geometry in Moss. So we were 100% going to need those. But let's see how far we can get with just that. In fact, maybe we'll just not carve anything for the moment. Okay, so we're going to need that. And that means we're going to need to grab it from the same place. I thought I already did. I think I can just say get geometry factory. But let me make sure game session state will give me one of those. Get model geometry factory is what I want. What is the difference? I must remember. One calculates bounding boxes and the other doesn't. Is that the way it goes? Oh, it allows collisions. Yep, that's what it does. It allows like JMonkey engine collisions, so we could click it with our mouse. So yeah, we want the model. We want the model version so that the models are clickable. Spatial factory. Model view state. Yeah, talking about Fallout. I played the hell out of Fallout 3. Again, didn't hardly advance the main story. I think I probably got to some point where I sort of knew the general vicinity where my dad was. Yeah, I didn't really... I just wandered around, did lots of stuff, you know, found the vampires, found the... yeah, anyway. Found the dog. What was his name in Fallout 3? In Fallout 4 was dog meat, right? But in Fallout 3, I don't remember. But like my memory of that game is that everything is drab and green and brown, right? Because it was a wasteland, and so I preferred Skyrim because it had like forests and green places. It had Mythruna. Like the reason I like Mythruna is because everything's green. I live in a green place. You know, I live in a place where there's trees everywhere, and even in the suburbs here, where like if you don't tame your backyard, it becomes overgrown with bushes and green, and I like that. So I built Mythruna mostly so you can wander around and everything's green and pretty. Of course, there are areas, you know, it's all snow and all desert, and that's, you got to have those. But my recollection of Fallout 3 is that everything's green and brown and gray. So it's like I don't have a strong desire to go back. Fallout 4 was brighter colors in my memory, at least. What was I doing? Okay, so back to Spatial Factory. But you guys are making me want to go back and play those games, which would be... this conversation is. You guys aren't. I started the conversation. Because thou shalt get sidetracked by the wasteland has its own golden rule. Alright, so if we've got... So down here... Not this one, this one, this one. So I'm going to ignore, because this is going to be specific model factory at some point. So I think I'm going to steal this for the moment. So we don't have a part yet. So where do we get that? Oh, right here. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I never got into Fortnite Um, I wasn't sure I would like it. Um, I I feel like I'm to the age where a lot of those competitive games, I go in and it's just, hey, who shot me? That's what the game could be called. It's like, hey, who shot me? Well, how did I? Who shot me? Hey, who shot me? Because I'm not any good at them, and so I'd have to like work at it before I could get good enough to like not die all the time by being shot by everyone. So I never really got into the Call of Duty and any of those everybody against everybody shooters. And it's to my detriment, I think, because used to play Doom and stuff back in the day. Quake. Oh, single player. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's funny because before there was such a thing as multiplayer games, I imagined them and imagined all of the things they could be, and and so would dream about it and designed my own games around this idea and played MUDs back in the day. You guys probably aren't old enough to know what a MUD is, but multi-user dungeon, which is like text-based adventure, but you were on there with other players. Um, yeah, so this is not going to fly. I'm going to have to refactor this. I'm going to have to stop and think for a second in a minute, but then when multiplayer came out, and I had imagined MMOs long before they were out, right? Because I could see where it was coming. You could see all that stuff was coming. And then sorry, I'm thinking about two different things at once. But anyway, when some of the player bases were so toxic, or the other thing was World of Warcraft, which I watched my friends get so into that they would like call in sick to work because they had like a meetup. They were going to do a raid with some people, and so they had to like take work off to do that. And that sounds really cool. That sounds so much like something I would be into, right? That I knew was a problem. It's like watching people take drugs and go, "Oh yeah, I would really enjoy those, and I should stay away." Right? I knew I would be addicted, so I stayed out of it. And so I prefer single player games, and I prefer single player games that can be finished in a reasonable amount of time, or never. Right? Bethesda games, I'm never planning to finish them. I'll play for 800 hours. I'll never finish it. That's fine. But if it's going to be a single player game with an end, I look for short games. If it's like 10 hours, 20 hours, that sounds pretty good. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've missed work from staying up all night playing games before. That happened with Neverwinter Nights. So Neverwinter Nights was a multiplayer online game, but it was like your own servers. So I'd set up my own servers. Uh, yeah, nice. Um, and so I would be up late playing with my friends all night. Um, yeah, see, that's okay, right? I'm all on board with that. I think I was gonna take time off for Gran Turismo 4, but then it kept getting delayed, and I think it released on like Thanksgiving week or something, and so I didn't have to take any time off, and I could go down there with a cooler sitting next to me, and I have at the time on the PS3 I had two steering wheels and the pedals and everything, and actual like custom, like you can buy like racing seats for your car, and I had bought a couple of those and mounted them to boxes, and so you could actually sit down in front of my 8-foot screen side by side and do Gran Turismo. And I spent a lot of time down there that Thanksgiving week. Um, wow, now you're making me hungry. Lando Calrissian making the chat hungry. Okay, so we need part. So I need to figure out what of this legacy model info I actually need, because I need to pass it as separate parameters. And so I'm going through here. I need part, which I already have. That's passed in. I believe I'm going to want entity ID. Okay. Parts. Geom utils, carve includes. We're going to leave carving out for a minute. Parts, and entity ID. So I think we only need entity ID. And debug joints would be a global here. Boolean debug joints, which I don't think I'm going to need here because, well, I'll leave it because I'm pretty sure that I might put the mixed control stuff back in here. Some things are convenient. So create debug box, shape spatial utils, create debug box. Is it just a size, name, size, color? Name, yeah, part dot get name. So name, size, color, we need an entity ID. And so for sure, we need at least that from here. And we don't have an entity ID. Do I want one? Well, I can add it. I think that the model factory has it. Yep. So we could do it. So let's do it. Okay, so then it can pass the entity ID. So do you all have any guilty pleasure entertainment which you know that probably a lot of the world considers it not great, but you watch it anyway? Or you still look forward to watching it even though you've seen it a bunch of times and you know the world doesn't like it? But because for some reason I have that feeling about that Han Solo movie, which I guess critically was panned, but I think of it fondly, and I sometimes want to go back and watch it again, even though I know exactly everything that happens, and I don't like the fact that they like shoved everything about his backstory into one movie. But sometimes I just want to go live a Survivor. That Han Solo movie was good. Survivor, the TV show, like where they compete on the island. I thought the Han Solo movie was good too. I thought it had a lot of neat stuff in it. But I recognize that the criticisms are valid, right? Yeah, so Survivor I definitely would call a guilty pleasure for a lot of groups of people because I think that's a very polarized sort of oh, it's so nice that you can't get up some days. That's not good, I guess. Maybe, unless you're really comfortable. Late 90s obscure TV shows, movies. Give me an example, Lando. Your name, Lando Calrissian, made me think of the Han Solo movie, which is why I started down this path in the first place. Because I thought, what's his name? Don Glover or whatever, did a really good job with that character. Of course, I liked him on Community as well. Okay, so debug joints. We want to do this again. Oh, this is green. Ah, I see what I did. So node attach child green. there was a show called Nightman that had cheesy CGI and other mysterious ways. Nightman. I don't remember Nightman, and I grew up, like, I was a young adult in the late 90s. Or, depending on how you define young adult, the 90s was my 20s, right? I turned 20 in 1991. But I don't remember Nightman. The other thing I really like is 1980s creature films. There was a sort of pacing to those movies that is not duplicated anymore. The whole idea that our monster's going to look kind of dumb, so we're going to wait until late in the movie to show it to you, kind of thing. So you build up all this tension before you even see it. 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb. Which one has the 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb? Solo or the TV shows he was talking about? You guys, I keep getting distracted. Nightman. Oh. Yeah, I may have to look that up. So mix, we don't know. Mix, we don't care right now. Okay, so for a moment, I'm going to try to compile this to see what I forgot. Whoa! Okay, I need to import some things, that's for sure. It was like 4 or 5 when I would watch Nightman. Nightman went from... a jazz musician... Okay, so I'm going to... Was this a... Are you in the U.S.? Was this a U.S. show, or was this in another country? Just to be sure that I'm, like... like, even in the... right ballpark. The jazz musician does imply probably the U.S., the United States. Yeah, it was US. Okay. Yeah, man, I've never heard of it, and it ran for like 2-3 years. Wow. That might have been the point where I was in TiVo, on TiVo. No, TiVo would have come later. 1999 is when I bought my house, though, where I still live to this day. Okay, so we need a whole bunch of M-block stuff. Probably I want to do this, and M-block geom. I think geom. Yeah, so... Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard my burp. Trying to think of other guilty pleasures. But yeah, the 80s creature flicks. I'm trying to think of examples, but like I mean, Gremlins was almost a parody of those flicks in a sense. I mean, it basically one-upped them and did them better, but after Jaws, that whole idea of the pacing of building the tension, showing the creature late in the movie, that was quite popular for a lot of things. And as a teenager in the 80s, like we only had 3 channels, but the local channel would always play like bad movies on Saturdays. And that's where I was, on the couch on Saturdays watching bad movies. So prior to a certain year, I've seen lots of movies. And then I haven't had time recently. I got a long queue of things I want to watch. Movies I would like to become my guilty pleasure, that I can look at them and know that, oh yeah, that's going to be deliciously bad. Okay, so Spaceship Factory 105. Oh, we got no part. Group. And those are 2 warnings, so we would be good. So we have to look up Nightman as a guilty pleasure. Right now I'm rewatching Star Trek Next Generation with my older child, who's into sci-fi and stuff. Some of those episodes really hold up today. I'm kind of surprised. You know, some media takes place in a certain time, and you know, with the sensibilities of the day, and doesn't always translate well. But I liked all of the Star Treks. I even like Discovery, although I would say it's not a Star Trek show, but I appreciate it's more space opera to me, but I appreciate the show. And its best thing was Strange New Worlds that spun off of it. I really like Strange New Worlds. And DS9, man, DS9. So DS9 I appreciated more when I rewatched it years and years later. Woo, nice. We crashed. And so I've never watched the last episode of DS9. I got maybe not even the last 2 episodes. But we're almost to the season of Star Trek Next Generation where they both start happening in parallel, right? And even though I don't think there's ever any crossover between the 2 shows, that's when we're going to start watching Mysterious Ways in Early Edition. I remember Early Edition. I've heard of Early Edition. But if you guys haven't checked out Strange New Worlds, that's a decent show. I even get over the fact that I hate it. I hate that too. But if you watch the show and pretend it's not Star Trek, because the ship is way too big to be any Star Trek ship, it's way too crazy to be anything Star Trek Federation would ever allowed to happen, right? If you watch it as if it's not a Star Trek, pretend it's like a Star Wars show, right? Or something else, right? It's okay. I liked it. It was a fun romp. And its best thing was Strange New Worlds. And I can even forgive Strange New Worlds for making the view screen a window. Because I get it. It's really cool and it makes logical sense on some level, even though it was never true in Star Trek and everyone thought that the main view screen was a window. Why do you put the bridge on top of the ship if you don't have a window? All valid points. So I kind of forgive them. But, okay, so we've got... Okay, so I do have apparently some... I know why this happens. Yeah, I like Strange New Worlds a lot. I like it enough that I wait for when the new episodes come out, and I actually watch them as they come out. I like the characters. I like the tone of the show. I like that it's episodic again. Yeah. So what happens here is that we get a spatial that is I never got into Battlestar Galactica. I felt like still to this day I prefer episodic television. I don't mind long story arcs, but I like when the show has a beginning, middle, and end, and you go to the next show. And so this is why I have a problem in some ways with Star Trek Discovery, because it's like one big long 10 episode show, and a lot of the Netflix series are like that, and I watch them and they're good. Fallout was like that. I watch them and they're good, but I prefer, when I'm going down to eat my dinner and watch TV, I prefer episodic television. I like them the murder at the beginning of the thing. They do the detective work and they find the bad guy and they put him in jail by the end. That's, I can finish my dinner and eat my dessert. And so Battlestar Galactica stretched out the stories, and I was intrigued. I remember the original. I really liked the original as a kid. But I was kind of anti that kind of television at that point. Babylon 5 was about as far as I would go, and even Babylon 5 managed to be episodic within a long story arc. And so I thought that, and so then I started seeing that creep into like Voyager, where they were trying to build in more long-term story arcs instead of wrapping things up at the end of an episode. And at the time, I was not tolerant of that, so I didn't really watch it. Yeah, so you could, yeah. I know I would get sucked into Survivor if I watched it. Um, no, man, Babylon 5 that was awesome. It was a great show. And the 5-year plan, and like trying to explain it to somebody, when they found Babylon 4, right, and they took it back in time, um, and then the dude turned into Valen, and it's like trying to explain that to somebody, like how cool that episode was because it wrapped up so many plot lines and then created all these others and answered 50 questions and opened 100 questions, and trying to explain to somebody how pivotal that episode was impossible, but it was so much fun to try. Yeah, it was a good show. So let's like so I think I have to put this in. I was trying to avoid it, but I think I have to put it in. Okay, so if the celery part is the type sphere, we need yeah, so we'll just debug spatial utils. Yeah, so I should, for these live streams, I should really think of like topics to discuss, because this has been fun chatting with you guys about random crap. Create debug sphere. So what do we got? So we want to return spatial utils, create debug sphere, sphere part get name, radius we don't have. Yeah, so oh, we do actually. It's on the part. So yeah. Now I might have to watch Solo tonight. No, so the thing is, like, I get into movies and then I just want to keep watching movies. And if I'm going to take the time to watch a movie, I should watch a movie that I haven't seen yet, that I want to be my new guilty pleasure, like Bullet Train or whatever the Netflix show that I keep seeing clips of, and I want to try it. If any of you've ever seen Bullet Train, I think it looks fun. But I like that kind of crazy action movie. Doesn't take itself too seriously. The other thing is, like, I wish Netflix would let you sort movies by how long, like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Sometimes I only want to watch a 90-minute movie, and every movie I look at is like 2.5 hours. I'm like, I ain't got time for a 2.5 hour movie. I want to be able to filter on length. Uh-oh, the Pepsi's gone. We're on water now. As much Pepsi as I drink, maybe I can get them to sponsor me and I can put a little logo in the lower corner, a little Pepsi logo. I've seen I've seen some of the clips, and I'm not really into football, but it did look like it would be fun. Okay, so we've got okay. we've got bad things happening, right? Because this is a wow. Okay, but look, all of these objects are back, right? The block objects are back. I should put that back on the ground. It's going to confuse me later. But the any of the special things that aren't block objects are screwy. So like I'm I'm a disembodied figure with a and I think what that's showing me is yeah, what the hell is that showing me? I don't know if that's the my shapes, but I would still expect it to be standing up. It's interesting. And there's a these are the okay, so the rig shape must come through as a basically the character rigs must come through as spheres, and that's why I've got a red sphere here. And then the parts, yeah, so basically these are the parts that are attached to my skeleton. So like this is probably the spine, probably the arms, and other things are in here. Actually, this might be the head. It's big for a head though. No, that's right, there is a sphere at the bottom. But the problem is that because the rig is not actually activated and animated, these are not positioned in their normal places. So there could actually be multiple sets of blocks in here. But actually it's starting to work, right? We're seeing the things. And you know, some of these are right here. Like I think it's funny that I'm a disembodied backpack running around. I kind of want to fix that before I forget, but so let's jump inside. This is going to be so cool when these are flying around. Flying around, come up here, hit the wheel. A bunch of things has to happen first. So just for everyone who's stuck around, all 7 of you who are nice enough to stick around, the next thing that has to happen for airships to work properly, unless I hack them in, but I'd rather not, is some kind of control system. So I have to minimally get sort of the magic crystal logic at least prototyped enough. Well, so first of all, I need to be able to make doors and levers and things that don't just open and close when you click them. That'll be like the default way, but something where I could grab it and drag the knob where I want it, kind of thing, so that I could make a lever where you could stand there and you could hold the lever or hold the wheel and steer, right? And then I have to have the magic crystal circuits set up enough just so that I can have a control rod here that has at least the crystal tuned to, you know, set the engines left and right to go, or whatever is going to be the control system for this. And then I have to implement the basic wind system, because I don't think flying these is going to be any fun. And I use that in the, you know, fun meaning challenging, if there's no wind. So I think I want to have wind and clouds and the basic control systems down before we can have player controlled airships. Now before that there might be airships that are controlled by NPCs, but I create problems for myself when I code too much that's going to be replaced by another system later. So I have to kind of assess what the depth of that pit is going to be, how far that rabbit hole is going to go down, and so on. But like that's my dream, right? I want to be able to fly one of these over to that mountain and, you know, just go over the mountain and see myself come over the top, and I want to be able to set the controls like so you can set it straight and it'll fly relatively straight while I wander around the boat and do things. Then I want to be able to someday hire an NPC to fly it for me, or I hire a boat and I say, hey, why don't we go to, why don't you fly me over to town 2377? And in the meantime, I'm going to go to my crafting workbench down here and make some stuff or whatever. That's the way it should be. Anyway, so next step, I think, trying to decide if I want to start this on the live stream, but the next step would be to start replacing the rig stuff. Characters would be next, I think, because I think that the open and close for these, which, by the way, if I bring up the thing, you can see the physical objects are actually, yes, you can see everybody's physics are still there. If I click on this, it actually, I expected the physics to change. There's, oh, they're probably based on, yeah, I don't know why, but anyway, I think the characters and animation is the next thing, because there's a bunch involved in that, as far as putting their clothes on and animating them. They're normally two different pluggable states that did background threading. That's the other thing, is I need to put this stuff on a background thread. It's not critical right now because I'm heavily caching, which is something I wasn't doing before. So I cache the shapes, I cache the spatials. No, I don't cache the spatials. JMonkey Engine does, but I don't. So that's another thing I need to add, spatial caching. Because the way I did the lighting now lets me do spatial caching. So what's next? Let me look at maybe we can at least get the rigs loaded. So somewhere in here, oh yeah, see, this was a problem already, because the right in here there's this before we even get here, somewhere it's saying what kind of shape is it, because maybe I don't want to create model. Yeah, see, if it's already got this, yeah, it's already got this custom code in here that was never part of the spatial factory. And so now we can actually do this in a really formal way. So instead of a model factory, we can have a rig model factory. Right? Let me just put that code down there for a second. Clear this CRUD out. Fix the standard client view object. I may have to watch a movie tonight. You guys have got me all, this conversation has got me all like wired up to want to watch a movie. Have you guys watched that Delicious in Dungeon on Netflix? I don't know if you guys have Netflix. Because I've been watching it like when I if I go down super late and I don't have time for like a long show, I'll watch that because it's only 20 minutes. I've been enjoying it. It's a very imaginative show. Like that dungeon, yeah. Ozarks. I recommend if you like anime at all or Dungeons and Dragons, type stuff at all, give it a try. If you don't like it by the first few episodes, then you're probably not going to like it. But I kind of, if you are okay with, I think anime has a certain tone, right? And if you already are cool with that, I think the show's really good. I think I've enjoyed it a lot. So we want asset manager, and I think we're going to need to pass that in. It's amazing that I'm actually kind of proud of myself that the characters worked as well as they did, considering. Asset manager is... anyway, Delicious in Dungeon. It's good. I mean, the conceit of the show is that I don't know if you guys watch a lot of anime, but some of it is very into the food, and almost in anime a lot of times when they draw food, it's like the best drawn of everything in whatever show you're watching. Like they really take their time to draw that food well. And so this show, they're in the dungeon and they need to go back in for whatever reason, and they need to be in kind of a hurry, and they don't have the money to buy tons of food, and then they'd have to carry their rations around with them. And so they decide they're going to figure out how to live off the land, and so they're cooking and eating the monsters that they kill in the dungeon. And so all these different wild things, and they learn things about the monsters as they do it. It's kind of it's interesting. Give it a try. I recommend it. And if you hate it, you can come back and say, "Hey, you steered me wrong, Paul. I hate that show." Like, okay, sorry. I thought it was cool. Okay, we're going to want to make a public version of this one, but for now, I'm just going to cut and paste this one. But I'm going to want an actual rig model, because there's other app states are going to want to set the clothing or the animation and so on and so forth. But for now, just trying to get it working. So we are going to... Oh, interesting. So we're going to want the... Do I need the rig shape? I don't. Yes, I do. Right there. That's unfortunate, but that, yeah, because I need the rig to configure the spatial. Okay. So I am going to need the shape factory. But aside from the killing things in the dungeon and eating it part, the dungeon itself is very interesting. I mean, it's got entire like forests and things in the dungeon. It's really kind of neat. They have a town in the dungeon, which like I write shows when I watch shows, I keep my Mythruna ideas notebook open and I just jot down little ideas that I got. And so some shows, you know, I'll watch like a whole season and I'll get maybe one or two ideas, but Delicious in Dungeon, I like lots of crazy little ideas from that show. Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, let me write that down. I don't know. I mean, this is the ideas book. You know, 90% of the stuff I'll never have time to implement or whatever, but it's nice to have like a whole notebook of random thoughts that to play around with, right? Let me just steal everything here. Probably gonna need it. Oops. Okay. All right. So yeah, I think I've got like 4 episodes left of that show, and I'm kind of sad about it. Okay, let me just cut and paste this up here for a second. So what we want to do is this, just like we did in the other one. And then if the shape, no, we already know it is, because we would have, in fact, we can cast it. We already know for sure, 100%, it's going to be a rig shape, because that we're going to register this with the rig type. In fact, let me show you what I mean. So the type-based thing, you can register a factory, and so in the model view state where we're setting these guys up, oops, so model factory Register factory. I believe it's just rig. New rig model factory. Shape factory. App get asset. Wow, we got 9 people on now. Nice. If you are new to Mythruna, up in the upper left corner is a link where you can download the January release, and that's the super secret password. And that's also where the Discord link is if you want to join our Discord. And if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, that'd be cool too. Okay, so we did that. That should do it if I got that right. And then so rig shape. So the asset name, we're pretty close. So we just want the name, get full name. In fact, I can just do this. There's no reason to do weird things. So spatial equals assets. See, this code is a lot simpler than the old stuff was. We do want to set the OID. That's how we know what was clicked on. So in JMonkey Engine, a spatial is the visual representation of a thing. You can set user data on it. The only thing I really use user data for is to set the object ID, so that like when I get events that something was clicked on it, I know how to translate that back to the entity. That's really the only reason I have it. So don't need that, do need this. We want to cast and receive, absolutely. Shadows, that puts it in the shadow queue so that they'll cast shadows, which is using the drop shadow support. And then shape, get rig type, and this part we do have to cast. And we want that, and so we're going to configure, whoops, spatial. Alright, and then I think we just do that, except for it's the rig model. So I'm kind of wiring this all up slipshod, because some of it's more tedious than others. So the thing I got to do is go back to the default model factory. I have to give it, there's something called a job service, which will let it run things on the background. And so what it will do instead is, instead of creating these things inline, instead of loading the shape, this is on the render thread, right? So we're blocking drawing while we're doing this. And so instead of like potentially loading this model from the server and potentially loading this, spatial that's, a 3 meg, J3O or something, or in this case, big giant block object that's got to like create all this geometry for. Instead of doing that while we're blocking drawing, we would put that on a background thread, and we would return this model. And once the model was actually loaded, it would set it on there, and model view state's set up to work with that. It basically watches it until the model's loaded, and then adds it to the scene. But like, there's no strong reason for me to do that on the live stream. It just complicates sort of complicates the flow of what we're seeing. But that I have to do here, and I for sure have to do it here. I don't think we'll have time for me to wire up animations. We'll have to see, because that's a whole separate thing. Maybe we'll have time to wire up clothing, because I think they're going to load in. They might load in with their default texture, which is their clothing but upside down, because something got flipped funny. Okay, so I think, let's see if it will compile. Classic. That's in the register, yep. Classic. Even my editor was telling me that was wrong. I was pretty sure I had done that, but I did not. That's not here. That is rig model factory. Oh, I nuked it when I cut and pasted the other things. That's what I did wrong. Shape factory. Warning, warning, I'll have to go get rid of those later. Warning, 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 warning. Error. Rig shape. Cannot find symbol. Aha! This we can fix. Because C-rig, I think I'm going to need both of those. Boy. So, yeah, anytime you see like com.simsilica, that's going to be either already open source libraries that you can use in your own games, or something that will be eventually because it's part of MOS. And the C-rig, the character rig stuff, is part of MOS. So that's part of the open source stuff, or the someday will be open source stuff. Any of you who are already patrons and are software developers, Java developers, and would like to poke at the code for the open source parts, all you have to do is ask. Send me your, in private, send me your GitHub ID or whatever. Shadow mode. The shadow knows. Yeah. I import those directly for this very specific reason. Yeah, so if I get these basic models hooked up, yeah, that's basically all the basic models. And then I have to deal with their add-ons, which is the animation of the assemblies, animation of characters, you know, butterflies and dogs and blah blah blah, and clothing. And then I can basically retire the old. Oh, and I have to. So then I have to port over the thing that's broken, which is the chopping stuff, the destructible blocks, which doesn't work right, and was the whole reason I did this. So I'll port that over, and then we'll have properly choppable blocks, and then I can get those set up for warped space so that I can chop trees. I might not get that done this release. At some point I have to cut it off because I have like a month to get ready for my younger child's graduation party, and there's a ton of stuff to do to the house and the yard before that. That's like a month away. Okay, so we've got no longer red spheres. We've got, yay, look, they're not animated. Their their clothing's not even upside down. So she's just got her default texture. Oh, some of it is, right? The yeah, like the armband. Yeah, I redid the I think I redid the UVs on the arms, and so that's why those are. But so we've got, you know, clothingless thing. Oh, that's the other thing I have to do is copy the animations to the different rigs, because like I gave her like the swing animations. Right, this particular model has the swing animations. Of course, we can't see it because those animations aren't working right now. But see, the sword is still being because that's done on the server. Yeah, and so the lighting isn't right because it's using her feet for the lighting, and depending on like whether we're odd or even, it's being read wrong. So there's still like ton of things to do, little things like that to wrap it up, and that's why I'm thinking that getting round choppable things working, I might have to like push off, because I really want to get this release out. Kill Tony is a bit of a guilty pleasure of ours too. Kill Tony. What's that one about? Which platform is that on? Is that regular TV or? Anyway, so we're getting pretty close. I got to get clothing. So let me kind of create a list while I'm waiting for Oak to answer that question. This is not what I want to show. Open mic type thing on YouTube. Oh, huh. Like open mic comedy or open mic singing? I'm guessing comedy. Alright, so release to do list. Got to choppable blocks in new model view state. Animated rigs ported to new MVS. Clothing ported to new MVS. We need 1 minute of stand up and then an interview by comics. Nice. Clothing ported to new MVS. Mix control ported to new MVS. What else? I just said, and the reason I created this list is because there was something else I was forgetting. Hey, there's a butterfly that's not flapping its wings. Oh, copy the animations. See, all these are actually in my master list, but copy animation, swing arm, animations to other rigs, other Blender rigs. What else? Stretch goals. Warped space, shoppable blocks. Proper shoppable blocks falling back to partial blocks. So that's when it resembles a wedge, you know, after a while. It's supposed to go back to the block. I need that because otherwise they would take up a lot of resources in the game just sitting there. Warp space, choppable blocks, tree trunks. Stretch goals. What was the other one? Oh, butterflies with proper 3D wander. Right now, I do want to try to get that in, but that's a stretch goal. I don't know that I will. But if you watch the butterflies, you know, they'll fly around, but then when they decide they want to land, he's not going to decide he wants to land anytime soon, is he? They just kind of fall out of the sky. They don't fly down to any particular... Yeah, so he's just going to fall out of the sky, bump, and then keep flying. They don't navigate in 3D. They're essentially navigating in 2D, but they've got no gravity when they're flying. And then when they want to stop, they turn on like a really light gravity, like if they were in water, and so they fall down. So it's a hack. It works. But it looks a little silly to my eyes sometimes that butterflies just kind of drop out of the sky. And it'll be worse when they're birds. And so I wanted to at least get like a basic 3D navigation where they could navigate from up here to down there and land where they intended to land, because then they could wander to nearby flowers and stuff, which they really can't do right now. But we'll see. So yeah, oh, the center offsets. Yeah, so animated rig and proper center offsets for models and rigs. So these are to-do lists. I may actually be able to make a pretty good dent in this weekend, because it's raining here. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I'll have to be out in the yard. But anyway, so I think this might be where I wrap it up. I'm not sure I'll be able to get much done significant. I think it's funny to watch her backpack move around on her back while she walks. Well, we've got twins. Maybe I'll add a dog to the scene to see. He's gonna look silly too. Where's the dog? Oh, a Gafen. Yeah, so we get unanimated Gafen, um, unanimated dog that will still run over to you and bark at you. Oh, but the offsets for the yeah, okay. The offsets for the stuff is all weird. I think if I put a sphere down, yeah, so spheres are broken. I'll have to fix that. So anyway, that's a good place to end it, I think. I think we got a lot done tonight. Thanks for like hanging out. If you haven't liked the video already and you're still hanging around, just reach down and give it a thumbs up or whatever. It does help the algorithm. If you think of something or if you have ideas for future streams, give a comment or just say hi. And the link was all over the video if you want to download the latest one and join the Discord. Sometimes we have pretty good chats there too about random things, Mythruna or not. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.